Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's show. I'm your host, Zach Drew. You're going to want to stay tuned in for this program because we do have a very special guest I'm going to be bringing out for just a few minutes, This content is going to be spreading for sure 2 shows, maybe even 3 shows. I have first of all, I'll go ahead and tell you. You can see it on the screen. I named this show Ancient Giants, Forbidden Knowledge, and Modern Portals. It's going to start with Genesis 6. And at the end of the second or third show, we are going to be ending with how this connects to absolutely everything in the world of AI, artificial intelligence, singularity, the global brain, quantum computing, how it all ties in together perfectly. I've worked really hard on this content that's going to span, like I said, the next 2 or 3 shows, and it's going to be fascinating. Listen, I'll tell you right now that I feel like God has really, really directed my steps in such a profound way ever since I got saved. I really got saved. You can say I got saved as a kid, but I really got saved whenever I was 17 years old. And it led me on a journey to Jim Bakker's, then to True News, and then to what I'm doing now. And I'm going to be talking about that a little bit, but I'm telling you, in the next 2 or 3 shows, the part of my life that God so supernaturally has guided was specifically my time at True News in Vero Beach, Florida, and what I was able to learn and gather from the team and through our trips all over the world concerning artificial intelligence, concerning how that ties into the body of Christ, what that means for you and I, how certain prophetic scriptures are going to be fulfilled because of the future of artificial intelligence. And I'm going to be talking about starting the show today with an absolutely groundbreaking archaeological find of, well, I was going to say the century, but basically ever is what they're calling it. An entire underground cities, but underneath the Giza pyramids, the great pyramids in Egypt. And what that means, and I was talking to a friend of mine, a colleague, an associate in the real estate world. As you know, I do a few different things because we can't sustain ourselves just on the program. Hopefully one day we will. And so he is kind of my construction manager, I guess you could say. He kind of manages the crew that helped me flip homes. And he said, hey, what are you going to talk about this week on today's program? I said, well, it's not going to be a typical program for me. We're going to be actually talking about the shocking discovery in Egypt. He goes, yeah, I've been actually reading about that. And, I think, he's a Christian, he's somewhere in there. And he just said, I know I'm very interested in that. I've actually been reading all about that. Kind of took me off guard. And he says, this really could change what a lot of people think about religion and different religions and the Christian faith. And I said, I absolutely beg to differ. I said, all this does is it confirms everything that I've been talking about for 10 years. So without any further ado, let us break down the first article of today. This is an article written by my friend, Michael Snyder. The discovery of giant structures under the Giza pyramids could prove that a whole bunch of conspiracy theories are actually true. Was there a time when humanity possessed technology that is even more advanced than we possess today? I'll go ahead and tell you, yes, absolutely. Using radar signals sent from 2 different satellites hovering high above our planet, a team of scientists has discovered that there are absolutely colossal man-made structures underneath the Giza pyramids in Egypt. And apparently these structures were designed for some sort of purpose, but our best minds can only speculate as to what that purpose might have been because it appears that the technology that was being used was far beyond anything that we have today. Even with all of the advanced technology that we possess today, we could not, in 2025, people, reproduce the Great Pyramid. Anyone that claims that the ancient Egyptians constructed the pyramids using ramps, sleds, and levers is being extremely irrational. And now a team of scientists has discovered what lies beneath the pyramids is even more impressive. Here's a quote. The mystery of an underground city beneath Egypt's pyramid deepens as scientists have shared new details about what may lie more than 4,000 feet below the surface. This is going to tie in to everything that they're building right now, what we learned at these technology conferences, it's gonna tie into Nikola Tesla, Donald Trump. I spent a lot of time on this, and I'm excited to share it over the next 2 to 3 weeks. It says a team of Italian researchers have claimed they uncovered giant vertical shafts wrapped in spiral staircases in a massive limestone platform containing 2 enormous chambers with descending channels resembling pipelines. During a news briefing released Saturday, the researchers said a water system had been identified beneath the platform located more than 2,100 feet below the Kuiper Pyramid, with underground pathways leading even deeper into the earth. In his article about this remarkable discovery, Greg Reese detailed that what these Italian researchers were able to see under the surface of the plateau where the pyramids are located. The analysis of dozens of tomographic SAR images obtained from different angles enabled the 3D reconstruction of inside the pyramid of Kuiper. And deep beneath the surface of the plateau, near the base of the pyramid, 5 identical structures are seen, connected by geometric pathways. Inside each of these are 5 horizontal levels and a sloping roof. Below these 5 structures are 8 cylinder structures which appear to be vertical wells, hollow inside and surrounded by descending spiral pathways. These 8 vertically aligned cylinder structures, arranged in 2 parallel rows from north to south, descend to a depth of 648 meters, where they all merge into 2 large cubic structures measuring approximately 80 meters per side. The entire structure extends approximately 2 kilometers beneath the surface and extends beneath all 3 pyramids of the Giza Plateau complex. This really does appear to be the greatest archaeological bombshell of this century so far. So why did someone build this absolutely gigantic underground complex? Some are claiming that it was actually an enormous geothermal power facility, which would actually, that's going to connect later on to Nikola Tesla. But here's what one X post said. What if the pyramids weren't tombs at all, but geothermal power plants? So basically, what wrote off Nikola Tesla from the scientific community was this. And it wasn't his discovery. It was how he said he made the discovery, through visions and through entities showing him dreams and visions on what to build, entities that do not exist within this world. Nikola Tesla. The new data suggests structures 3 kilometers beneath Kuiper's pyramid. At the depth of Earth, heat reaches over 100 degrees Celsius, that's Celsius, so, hot enough to boil water into steam. Now imagine 2 vertical shafts, ancient aquifers, precision stonework channeling superheated steam, a pyramid acting as a resonance amplifier, and a golden capstone dispersing pure clean energy. Combine that with Christopher Dunn's theory, chemical reactions creating hydrogen, and you're looking at a closed-loop renewable energy system built thousands of years ago. The Earth as your hot water tank, the pyramid as your battery, a civilization far ahead of ours. We didn't build it. We forgot it. It's time to remember. Back to the article really quickly. Others have suggested that pyramids generated electricity in other ways, and one author even suggested that the Great Pyramid may have been a weapon of mass destruction. Sounds weird, sounds far-fetched, until you understand what it actually could do, okay? Nikola Tesla believed that the pyramids could harness Earth's natural frequencies, which he accomplished. He literally used Earth's natural frequencies and was powering things like lamps 6, 7, 8 miles away using the frequency of the Earth. This arguably inspired his experiments in wireless energy transmission and scalar waves. Let me tell you right now, people, it is gonna get, as I like to say, spicy on today's program, next week's program, and likely even the program after that. This article is what helped me set the stage for an absolutely fascinating, disturbing, and the prophetic discussion that will likely unfold. For years, alternative historians, theologians have proposed that advanced beings or giant hybrid creatures played a role in constructing ancient monuments like the pyramids. And so these shows in this report style breakdown, we're going to dive into Genesis 6, the angelic hybrid theory, We're going to jump into the book of Enoch's Watchers, the Tower of Babel's hidden agenda, and how ancient forbidden knowledge might tie directly into today's cutting edge science. Because remember, the tree of knowledge of good and evil that Eve and Adam partook in, that doesn't mean that what they learned wasn't true. It was the knowledge. There is knowledge that we are not supposed to have as human beings. Think about that. It wasn't that the knowledge of good and evil, it wasn't that the evil knowledge was untrue. It was just knowledge that was forbidden. And it opened up this world, that world, to them. Jeez, people, this show is going to be heavy. It ends with AI and the second coming of Christ. We'll be moving from the antediluvian, which means pre-flood, technology and megalithic power grids to AI, transhumanism, the coming singularity, all of that right after this. Stay tuned for my special guest today. Well, look who decided to pop into the studio this week. Andrew Bellers. How are you, my friend? You're supposed to shake my hand.
Oh.
I wasn't pointing at you.
I thought you were like presenting me.
I was supposed to be shaking your hand.
That you were presenting me like an award.
Hey, so, maybe, I guess since you've been gone, we've went on, the only new platform is Faith and Values. Mm-hmm. So for those of you that are OG, original gangsters, you have been, since 2018 until what, 2021, 22? You were here.
I left in 23.
In 23, okay.
Yeah.
Middle of 23, something like that, right? Yeah. And so Andrew was actually full-time with IGBY in the Zach Drew Show for that time period. And so now Andrew has a fancy pants job in Michigan, and Andrew does still serve on the board, and he is our editor. So he has a full-time job in Michigan, and he dedicates about 5 hours a week or so every week to editing the program. And then we have Eric Rodriguez that handles all of the distribution. We have Gabe Atwood that handles all of our web stuff. And we have Linda for all of our accounting services. We're a very small team, small ministry, but with a huge goal, huge vision. I'm telling you that right now. And you know what? I don't want to reveal too much, but I've been talking to you guys for the last few months that we have big ideas. And I felt like the Lord had been putting in me these big ideas. And then out of the blue, I get a call from Andrew. I'm not going to go into the call yet, but I'll just say that the Lord has been moving upon his heart. Without any discussion from me, it's the Lord doing it. What we have in mind, it seems absolutely impossible. We've done a couple of absolutely impossible things.
Yeah, I'll jump in here real quick.
Go ahead and jump in there.
I just want to say, I feel so drawn to this ministry. I have ever since I started getting involved back in 2018. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it was 2018 when I first started working in like a part-time capacity here. And then, when I heard that Josh left, I knew you'd be in need of an editor. And I believe that this ministry is anointed by God and established by God. So I knew it would be fine. You would find someone. But I just feel so drawn to this ministry. That's why I contacted you and said, hey, if you need an editor, like, I'll figure it out. I'll make it work. Like, I really want to be involved and still want to be involved in a greater capacity. So that's kind of what we're talking about now, what that looks like. And so I don't know how much you want to divulge, but
I can't. I'm not going to divulge everything because it's going to be the right time. We've got to get all of our ducks in order, and it just honestly, in the natural, it doesn't make sense what we're going to be trying to do, and what you're going to be doing for IGBY. Because I'll tell you right now, I remember one time we were in the den. We used to film in the den, and because Andrew and I, we go way back. He was a student actually with Jim Baker, and I was the co-host and the head of the research department. He ended up becoming a research assistant to me, and then I asked him to start co-hosting a show with me, and we worked together for years at Jim Bakker, and then he got married, moved to Michigan. I came back here after True News, and I remember talking, I was actually we were driving, I can tell you that it was the street in town called South Shores, going down the road with my dad, and I said, listen, if I could wave a magic wand, I said, who I would want to be my partner in this venture is Andrew Bellers. Didn't ever even reach out to Andrew, didn't even tell him anything. And it was either that next day or the following day, Andrew called me out of the clear blue and said, hey, Zach, what's the housing market like in Decatur, Illinois? And so the Lord has just done supernatural things. And I'm telling you, you have been able to, and you were called of God to move back to Michigan.
Yeah.
And the things that you have learned in Michigan, oh my gosh.
And that really is, I went from, I was at Morningside for about 2 years for that internship. And, as far as the production side of things, I was very involved in pre-production. But as far as production side of things, I didn't learn a whole heck of a lot. I started with editing and graphics and all of that, and that's sort of where I grew from there. But as far as production, I mean, this show encompassed the whole of my experience in production, basically, for the almost 5 years that I was here. So, I kind of went into the job that I'm in now. I went in as an editor with not a lot of production experience.
Which we're not going to name the company, but he works right now, currently, for a media company that does tens of millions of dollars a year. And now he's actually been promoted to a manager position, handling entire shoots. I mean, Andrew he's learned a lot, I'll tell you, in his last couple of years in Michigan.
Yeah, I really have. So I'm the lead producer for a small team. I lead a team of 3 people, but we do a lot of work for 3 people.
Yes, you do.
And so it's a lot, but it has been
big famous people.
Yeah, I won't name drop, but big companies do a lot of local work throughout the nation. So they hire smaller production companies like us to do a lot of their local stuff. So yeah, it's cool. We've been able to deal with a lot of bigger corporations, but yeah, it has been a huge learning experience for me. I've learned so much, and I really do feel like that was why God called us back to Michigan.
And it's just like when the Lord wants to move, He's going to move. I remember one time we were back in the den, and we were trying to do a $2,500 fundraiser, and we raised like $500. Right? I mean, which is pretty discouraging
at the time.
Yeah, you were working for free. I'll go ahead and tell you, I was on food stamps. I mean, it was just like, it was the struggle of a lifetime.
Yeah.
We're trying to raise $2,500 for some basic equipment, raise like $400 or $500, and it's just crazy. It's all in the Lord's timing, because then I felt the Lord start to move. It would have been about a year later. And I said, guys, I feel like we are supposed to move out on this property. It was a garage with 3 garage doors, and I said, I feel like the Lord is telling us to expand and move. And I said, I know this sounds like a completely impossible goal. Was it 10,000? The original goal?
The original was 10,000.
And I said, we'd done $2,500 fundraiser and raised 500. And I felt the Lord moving upon and I said, guys, I think we're supposed to raise $10,000 a bare minimum.
Which felt impossible.
Totally and completely impossible. By the end of that week, over $20,000 had come in. By the end of that fundraiser, $80,000 had come in. When the Lord wants to move, He is going to move the mountains. And so it was like we had this idea for equipment. And then we hit the $25,000 mark, and we're like, now it's this equipment. Then the $50,000 mark, then this equipment. And then when we hit the $75,000 plus, we're like, oh my gosh, we are going to be able to get equipment made for nationally syndicated television. Yeah. And that's what we're doing today. It's unbelievable. And it's still unbelievable how little money comes in every month, and we are able to continue. And we're able to continue because, you do 5 hours. I have my other jobs as well. We would love to do this full time. And I feel the Lord moving again.
Yeah, and just so everyone's aware, we raised a lot of money in that fundraiser, and we were able to build this studio. We are today running with the equipment that we bought in
Yes,
2020. We're still
exactly.
running with that equipment.
Absolutely.
So my experience with this ministry, and in my own life, and probably in your life, you've had a very similar experience. God tends to move in seasons. So there are seasons of the valley, and there are seasons of the mountaintop. And so what my hope and dream right now, and I really feel like God is moving this, I hope that we're entering a new season of growth and movement.
I do too. I do too. I feel like moving back here, the Lord moved upon my heart whenever I was at the end of True News to move back here. And to move back home to my Jerusalem. I've always called Decatur my Jerusalem. And I've been here for over 5 years, 6 years, and the Lord has done so much in my life. But I honestly feel like compared to 18 to 27 years old, 28 years old, it was this trajectory. And then it's like he's moved me out on my own. And I feel like this has been a season of preparation for what he's going to do, because the Lord put a vision in my heart whenever I was 17 years old. And I will pursue that vision until the day I die. And I think we're entering into a new season, and it just seems, I don't even want to say the number. I don't even want to say the number because it just seems like, I feel like, Zacchaeus, O ye of little faith. We're not starting it today, but it's going to be in the next couple weeks or few weeks. We have such a plan, and it doesn't make sense because the finances themselves are so down. But we have a plan to do the largest fundraiser we've ever done. It is literally a 6-figure fundraiser. And I feel like the Lord is in it. And what that will mean for our mission, because we named the whole thing, Zach Drew was just a show under it. It's called IGBY, which stands for I Go Before You, which is a promise that God gave to Moses, and it was a promise that God gave to Joshua in Deuteronomy 6. That as he was leading a wandering generation into a promised land, that he was going to go before him and be with him. I go before you. And I feel like the Lord has placed a burden on my heart for Gen X and lower. Gen X, millennials, Gen Z. But the Lord has used my time with Jim Baker, with Rick Wiles, because a lot of my audience right now are not even Gen X, they're older. But I'm not one of those type of guys who's like, I'm young and I'm going to do it on my own. No. We have to partner together. We have to partner together to reach this generation. Because I hate money. But that is how you're going to reach, that's how you reach it. You can't produce more content. You can't hire more people. You can't do more shows without it. And I believe that it is you guys. I believe that it is your generation that's going to partner with IGBY and the Zach Drew Show to produce content for the Gen X, the millennials, the Gen Z, to lead that wandering generation into the promised land. And that metaphor today, that promised land is Jesus Christ. It's the gospel message. But to do that, to bring certain people back full time and to grind. I did a fundraiser a few months ago saying, we need to raise more funds to do more content, do more things, and more funds came in, but it didn't even bring us up to the point of getting back. And it's about seasons. And so the Lord has been putting this in my heart for a long time. And I know that whenever I was at True News, I was at True News for about 6 months. And I called my dad on the phone. I said, Dad, I'm telling you. I said, I was called of God to come to True News to learn about artificial intelligence. I was. And I didn't know, at that point in time, I didn't know if I was going to be there for a year, 2 years, or 20 years. I had no idea. I said, God called me here to learn about AI. That is why I am here. Several months go by and the Lord starts moving on my heart, things start shifting a bit at True News, and I felt like the Lord was saying, it's your time to launch out on your own. And I remember that God called me in such a supernatural way to go to Jim Bakker's. God called me in such a supernatural way to go to True News with Rick Wiles. God called me in such a supernatural way to leave Jim Bakker's. And I knew that I couldn't leave. Even if I felt it in my spirit that my time was coming to an end, that I felt like I was supposed to go, I couldn't move until God confirmed it. And I remember sitting in the car several months later before an evening church service at Flowing Streams Ministry at True News. And I'm praying to God, praying to the Lord, and asking him, Lord, I gotta have a sign from you that what I'm feeling in my spirit, it is time for me to launch out on my own. And he didn't speak to me in an audible way, but it was like I could hear him in my spirit. And he said, go and look up the kings Joshua defeated. Because I knew that it started after I got saved, this supernatural connection between my life and the life of Joshua in the Old Testament. And you've heard it sitting in coffee shops. People just come up to me and say, hey, Joshua, how you doing? It's as soon as I got saved, everybody, I mean, from family to dear friends, never before in my life have ever called me Josh or Joshua.
My grandma still calls you Josh sometimes.
It's unbelievable. Even, I was like a son to Jim Bakker and Mama Lori. And every once in a while they'd be like, hey, Joshua. And I remember Mama Lori was like, did several times, why do I call you Joshua? It was a supernatural connection. And I believe that there is I do believe in mantles. And I believe that, Jim Bakker, he really was a type of Moses to this generation. He had 1 million partners at one point in time. He was leading a generation. And then there was a sin in the wilderness. And he continued. But the overall vision of getting to that promised land, that mantle was passed to Joshua. I remember I was the number 2 at Morningside with Jim Bakker. I mean, we'd be having famous guests, Mike Huckabee, and everybody in the back, in the green room, and he introduced me as, this is my protege. And I knew every time, and I love Jim, and I have a great relationship with Pastor Jim still today. But every time he would say that, I would have something in my spirit say, I believe that the mantle will be passed, but it won't be here at Morningside. I will be somewhere else. And I believe that there's that connection. And I remember sitting in that parking lot at True News, and God said, go and look up the kings Joshua defeated. I had to Google search what chapter that was. Joshua chapter 12. And there's a list of 31 kings, and the first king was Joshua defeated the king of Jericho. And I knew even before I read that God had often linked my time at Pastor Jim's to my time at Jericho. You've got to do this for seven times, and 7 times around the 7th, 7 times on the 7th day. And I was with Jim for over 7 years. And I knew that the Lord had completed something during my time, just over 7 years at Jim Bakker's. So as soon as I saw the first king, I thought, God's speaking to me, that's my time at Jim's. And then I read the second king, and just goosebumps all over my arms. The Lord was speaking to me. Because I read and it said, the second king Joshua defeated was the king of Ai. And then it said the third king was the king of Jerusalem. And I knew that the Lord in that moment was calling me back home. And I've been in that season now for 5 or 6 years, setting me up, because it's in Joshua 12, the next king he defeated was 5 kings in one fell swoop. And I believe the Lord is doing something. He's setting us up. He brought people to IGBY, took them away, preparing them for even what's to come. And that's where we are today. That's where we are in this season. And we're going to have to raise over $100,000 And there's another way to do it. It would be, because we have to raise, I don't know if I'm just supposed to tell right now. I feel like the Lord is in this right now, but we're going to have to raise a total of almost $120,000. And it's like, why so much? Because that will buy us 2 years of time to build this thing. It's like, well, why don't just raise 1 year? Because I don't want to get halfway through and have to stop.
Yeah.
And another way to do it would be to raise about $5,000 to $6,000 in monthly recurring giving. And if we could get to that point, then we wouldn't have to raise the full 120. Because that would mean we know that we can count on that, and we could just do the 1 year, because if we have that, it's an impossible thing. But we have such a plan of more shows, more content, and a completely different show. You see I don't know if you see it in the wide shot, you probably can't, Andrew's body is hiding it. My Victor Wembanyama autographed jersey. I'm a huge sports guy, love sports. I'm telling you right now that whether you love sports or not, Gen X, millennials, Gen Z, love sports and love politics. I'd love to do a show called, in addition to this, in addition to another show for the Zach Drew Show, I'd like to do an entirely different show. It's a working title, but called Packs and Politics, where we literally rip open the new packs of NBA cards. Sounds kind of maybe goofy to you, not to us. And politics, because they're interested in politics. Even Gen Z, did you see the last election? Gen Z is waking up and they're conservatives. Trying to provide a fun atmosphere with sports, trying to provide analysis, good, deep analysis that they can't get anywhere else through politics. So good and so fun that it keeps them coming back, that they're just gonna have to suffer through the gospel message being preached every show. See, the bait is the sports and politics. The hook is the gospel message. To reach a wandering generation, to reach this generation at all, you've got to meet them where they're at. And good news for me, I am a millennial, and I already love those things. And the Lord has been preparing me for those things. But we cannot do it without your generation, without your sacrifice, without the Lord moving so deeply upon your heart for a lost generation. We invest so much money into our 401ks in the stock market, trying to get our 6 to 8% ROI, when the Lord says, store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moth and rust do not destroy. Because the treasures of earth, they rot away. Moth and rust destroy them. Our life, we are given a few opportunities in life to give into spiritual soil, to reap an eternal ROI. What is the ROI on the spirit realm? Well, the Lord talks about a 10-fold, 20-fold, 100-fold return. To raise $100,000 to $120,000 is impossible to two millennials sitting here. But we have a vision, and the Lord has been upon this from the beginning. And we're in a new season, and we've got to have some radical partnerships. I guess I told Andrew, I said, we're not going to talk about anything today on it.
We talked about everything.
I can't do it. When the Lord gets a hold of it, he gets a hold of it. This was absolutely not I wanted to bring him on, just give him a little update and continue with my show. The show's over, and I didn't even get to I got to the intro. I did the intro. If you want to do this, do it now. Go to zachdrewshow.com right now and partner with us. You are the backbone of this. If I gave everything I had, it wouldn't get us even near to what we would need. We have to have help. Go to zachdrewshow.com and click the bright orange donate button and give a generous gift. Or better yet, give a generous recurring donation. we're going to have to raise somewhere between $100,000 to $120,000. But if we raised $5,000 to $6,000, because that's the 100 to 120, that's for the 2 years. But if we raised $5,000 to $6,000 in monthly recurring, we could start now. You can give the old-fashioned way, Zach Drew Show, P.O. Box 797, Decatur, Illinois 62525. Give that way. Give a check to sow into soil that will reap eternal, forever, eternity rewards. And if you want to give a monthly recurring donation there, do it. But please put in the memo that it's for a monthly recurrence, that we can count it towards this. The next king on that list was 5 kings. I don't know if it's going to pan out, but I got a really interesting text 2 days ago from my friend Josh Peck of a connect that he made where he's trying to connect me with somebody. I'm not even going to mention their name, but everybody, not just in the Christian world, not just in the political world, everybody that is awake in America knows this man's name. And he made a connect. And he didn't even promote himself. He said, the guy you're looking for is Zach Drew. Things are on the horizon, and we can't do it without you. Get involved now. With that being said, I'm now going to continue my discourse, my in-depth report on ancient giants, forbidden knowledge, and modern parallels, and how that ties in from everything from thousands of years ago, from Genesis 6, all the way until now, 2025, and the years coming ahead that will end with the second coming of Jesus Christ. Andrew, shake my hand, not pointing at you, shake my hand. And so you go ahead, leave, we'll reset, and I'm going to come back and continue this discussion.